Just as the band Loverboy foretold, virtually every person in the world is working for the weekend. The daily grind is mundane, and hard work isn't always appreciated or even noticed. But the rat race is quite a bit different depending on where you happen to live. Today, we're taking a look at what the average workday is like around the world. But before we call a meeting that could have been an email, make sure you subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, let us know in the comments what other workplace weirdness you want us to investigate. Okay, it's time to make that paper. In the land of lager and sausage, German workers can expect a pretty standard working week. And hopefully lederhosen. Some workers work even less than the average. German workers on average will only clock in for about 35 hours each week, and that's the conservative estimate. The real number is probably somewhere around 25 to 30 hours depending on das Boss. And they spend an average of 42 minutes commuting to work. As far as lunch goes, Germans are known to take full advantage of midday breaks. Called Mittagspause, the daily lunch break usually involves a sit-down at a restaurant to enjoy a nice full meal with fellow employees. In America, we call that skipping work. And when the workday is done in Germany, it is done. The German Labor Ministry banned managers from contacting staff after hours except for emergencies. More time to kick back with a nice stein of Hefeweizen. The most laid-back workweek award is a tie between Canada and Finland, which each boast a breezy 6 hours and 45 minutes of work per day. But all that time you're not spending in the office is usually spent sitting in mind-numbing, miserable traffic. More than an hour each way for most Canadians. Paid time off includes 2 weeks for most of the Great White North, though Saskatchewan provides 3 weeks, because they think they're so much better than everyone else. A quick super sandwich is the preferred lunchtime treat since the only afternoon break lasts about 40 minutes, starting at noon. Ontario made some headlines in 2021 by passing a law prohibiting employers from contacting staff outside business hours. The rest of Canada has yet to follow suit. We're looking at you, Saskatchewan. Spanish employees can expect to be at work for a long time, until at least 8 p.m. However, Spain is one of the few countries in Europe to offer scheduled nap time, known as siestas. This is a policy that needs to be adopted by every nation of the world immediately. Spanish workers spend about an hour sitting in traffic before they clock in for the day. Their lunch breaks are a 2-hour event known as la comida, the most important meal of the day. This decadent experience features soup, salad, paella, stews, meats, and fish, all followed up with some fine Spanish desserts. Well, that explains why they need a nap. Spanish employees receive 22 working days off per year, which must be used by the end of December or else they're forfeited. They're also required to have at least 1.5 days off every week and accumulate no more than 80 hours of overtime per year. India is a big fan of designated work leave. Indian laws define several types of leave for employees, including the standard sick leave and vacation leave, but also something called casual leave, which we assume you take when you just want to go cruising. So while a typical workday in India runs from about 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., with an average 27-minute commute, there is still plenty of downtime. Lunch is typically eaten in the office, which means a lot of ordering out. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 delivery people serve an average of 200,000 hot meals every single day. That's a lot of DoorDash. An intricate system helps these delivery people, known as dabbawallas, distribute the massive amount of grub. Employees are guaranteed up to 6 days of casual leave, but most receive more than that. On top of that, you can earn 12 days of sick leave right off the bat and accrue 1.25 days of paid vacation per month. Chinese workers, coming off a 45-minute commute, start their workdays by 8:30 a.m. and end it around 6 p.m., which means they have just enough time to listen to 2 episodes of My American Life in the car. The typical Chinese workday allows a solid 2 hours to enjoy lunch. Many use this time to go home and eat with families before returning to work with their hearts and their bellies filled. Although if your commute is 45 minutes, you'd end up spending most of your break driving. Statistically, one of the least relaxing activities. Workers who have been with a company between 1 and 10 years earn just 5 days of paid time off each year. Only after they've worked from 10 to 20 years does that number start going up. If you want overtime at China, you're only allowed 36 extra hours per month, or up to double your regular pay. Considering you're not getting any vacation anytime soon, you might as well spend that time goosing your paychecks. We arrive in the only oddball country which starts their workday on Sunday, not Monday. The 5-day work week still exists, and Saudi workers still clock in from around 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. But that effectively makes Saturday the new Sunday, and Thursday the new Friday, and we're not ready for that kind of change. Women in Saudi Arabia weren't allowed to drive themselves to work before 2018, so taxis and private drivers were used to make the 12-mile average commute to the workplace. Saudi people who stayed with their company for 12 months earned 15 days of paid time off a year, and the number climbs the longer they remain on the job. Employers are given control over which days can be taken depending on how business will be affected, so sort of like a timeshare. Instead of a standard coffee break, people who draw a paycheck in Saudi Arabia get 5 prayer breaks sprinkled throughout the day, as well as a gargantuan 3-hour lunch break. Lunch is the largest meal of the day in Saudi Arabia and often features Kabsa, a traditional rice dish loaded with an array of spices. The whole work week ends up being around 48 hours of work time. If more work is needed, more pay is provided, up to 11 hours per business day. That's a lot of extra work. Mexico has one of the longest estimated work weeks based on a study by offices in 2017. 43.19 hours is about what one can expect to work whether they are part-time or self-employed. A grueling 2.5-hour round trip to work makes Mexico's commute one of the worst in the world. And with only a 30-minute lunch break each day, you'd be wise to bring a snack to eat on the way in. The law requires that if one works more than the typical 8-hour day or 7-hour night, they're owed double time for the first 9 hours with triple pay beyond that. Kenya's workforce enjoys a pretty typical grind. Workers in the cradle of humanity can be found punching their time cards at around 8:30 a.m. and punching out for the day at 5. And the average commute is less than an hour each way. Not too shabby. However, during the 8-hour workday, the lunch break is not recognized. Instead, workers are awarded 1 rest day for every 6 days of work. Meeting time is also not recognized during work hours, which means that if you're a worker in Kenya, you have to take any and all meetings during your own personal time. However, you're usually compensated to the tune of 150% of your actual pay. Time and a half for an inconvenient Zoom? That sounds pretty good. But unfortunately, the system still doesn't recognize that every Zoom call is inconvenient. You could take time off of all those meetings once you hit a 1-year milestone with your employer, at which point you receive 21 vacation days. The coolest workers can earn up to 45 days of PTO if they play their cards right. If someone has been with a company less than a year, they are given prorated leave. So if you want to play hooky and veg out on Xbox, you have to borrow against a future day of playing hooky and vegging out on Xbox. The land of the rising sun is home to some of the hardest workers in the world. Clocking in at 8:30 a.m. after a long, crowded commute via public transit, Japanese workers will sometimes work all the way until 7 p.m. before clocking out. Workers in most other countries would only do that at gunpoint. During an hour-long lunch break, ramen shops offer employees a quick, tasty, and interactive dining experience before getting back to the grind. Eating directly in front of the chef and chatting while snacking keeps solo diners from having to eat alone. By law, Japanese workers are guaranteed 10 days of PTO each year. After 6 years, that number skyrockets up to 20 days. Workers often go out for drinks after work, but it is not a fun, old-fashioned good time. Turning down such an invitation is greatly looked down on, regardless of whether you legitimately had a prior engagement or if you just can't stand to be around that weirdo from accounting. Employers expect their staff to get to the office early, work late, hang out after, and laugh at the boss's jokes, all for no extra pay. It has become such a problem that a new word was created for it, Karoshi, which translates to overwork death. In the US of A, workers are generally expected to clock in at 8:30 after a 40-minute commute and head out at 5:30 p.m. Americans are offered anywhere from 30 minutes to 1 hour for lunch, depending on the employer and the number of hours worked per day. It's the ultimate worker's paradox. 30 minutes isn't quite enough time to get something to eat, while an hour is just enough time to be late clocking back in. Though the option of going out to eat is available, it is common for most Americans to sit at their desks to grub while they work, leading other countries to refer to this practice as sad desk lunch. Yeah, we know, we're the ones eating it. Also, businesses frown upon having a midday cocktail. But counterpoint, a midday cocktail does make that Walmart shift fly by. American businesses are not required to give their employees any paid time off, which is another way of saying that 1 in every 4 American workers do not receive any PTO at all. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, private sector employees average around 9.7 days of leave per year. And a 2020 BBC survey reported that about 21% of American workers receive paid leave from their employers. And speaking of leave, in the US, you just may never really leave your job, as there is no law forbidding employers from contacting their employees outside of work hours. An estimated 48% of remote workers commonly work past midnight to complete tasks that they couldn't get done during the workday. And if all that land of opportunity isn't enough, according to the Pew Research Center, the U.S. is the only country among 41 other first world nations with no law requiring parental leave. But hey, at least we get President's Day off, sometimes. So what do you think? Are you ready to leave your current nation of employment and find a new land of opportunity? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.